Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Happy Tuesday. Today is International Happiness Day, and you've joined No Spin Rodeo, and you know we are internationally happy on here. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia. Also, we've got, of course, our magnificent co-host, the First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism, Kendra Santos, and we're joined by the elite of bullfighters, Cody Webster. We'll get into a conversation with him. And I like to throw out random stuff. By the way, Thomas Edison got his first light bulb to work today in 1879. Can you imagine the world without a light bulb? Be like without Facebook, right? Hello, everybody. Hello, No Spinners. Welcome to No Spin. I just went random like I always do, and it irritates Kendra. Welcome, Cody. Welcome, Kendra. How's everybody doing today?
Really good. Really good, Tom and Joe. It's good to see you, Kendra. It's always great to see your face. I'm just excited to be on here with you guys.
You're quite the superstar. We got a lot to talk about. I mean, you're like a movie star now. That's pretty cool. Did you have to take some lessons, or did they do any photoshopping, or was it just?
They did their best to make me look as good as they could. I'll give you that.
Well, typically I turn it over to Kendra first, and then I bring in. Well, he's from Oklahoma. We'll talk about it later. They have the annual chicken show in his hometown. Grew up there. We'll get into the history of him. Big ranch out there. But if you don't know who Cody Webster is, I'll start it this way. Without exception, one of the elite ever rodeo lifesavers, bullfighters, freestyle artist. Very, very good. Started young. Is it true you were the youngest guy to ever work the NFR? That's true, isn't it?
I think it's true.
So.
I think it's true, or I think maybe I'm tied with Frank Newsom. It'd have to be fact checked, but I think we both were 21, or maybe I beat him by 1 year or something. But it's really close.
Well, you can't Google or you can't trust anything you find anymore. So you have to ask if it's true, because most everything that comes up is BS. So Kendra, turning it over to you, let you work him around like dough a little bit, and then I'll hit him up.
I'm a questions girl, Cody. Okay.
Perfect.
So just for the just absolute basics here, correct any of this if it's wrong. 5-time and reigning PRCA Bullfighter of the Year, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
13. This is going to be your 13th NFR, and you've also worked 13 PBR World Finals, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Also a farmer and a rancher.
Well, I don't know about the farming so much, but I do like to classify myself as a rancher for sure.
Did you not tell me that you went and got some wheat to plant or something? No.
Yeah, we got some wheat seeds and pasture mix, but I'm not going to brag about that part. I like ranching.
I gotcha.
You got to feed them, though. You got to feed them.
Yeah, it helps to put a little seed in the ground and give them a little something to munch on through the winter months. But I'm terrible at farming. I'm terrible at all that work. But I like being horseback. I love cattle and I love fighting bulls. So we've got a lot of mean cattle around this place that likes to get you.
Well, one of the first things I was going to ask you is how in the world someone sets out to be a bullfighter. I was just watching a little video, a little mini movie about you. And is it true with Halloween coming that when you were a kid, like every Halloween, you were a bullfighter?
Every Halloween, I was never nothing else. I'll be honest, like the Scream movie or whatever that horror movie is, it scared me like very badly to the point where like I could hardly go outside at nighttime for a long time. So I was always a bullfighter. That's what I wanted to be, and painted my face. Every Halloween, and then every not just Halloween, but about every day when I was real young. a guy had a big billy goat that was probably on me now, it'd probably be a little bit over hip high, a pretty good sized goat. And he ended up getting in the guy's barn in his feed room. And when the guy walked in there to try to get him out, he started hooking on him. So he stuck his leg up to try to kick the goat, and that goat flipped him and broke his back really bad, put him in the hospital. And anyhow, somehow we ended up with that goat, and that's literally what I started fighting goats, fighting bulls on was a big billy goat. And so like every day I was putting on my baggies and my face paint and going and fighting this goat when I could. And then all the local rodeos, all the junior rodeos, it didn't matter where we went. If they had calf riding or sheep riding, I was in the middle of it trying to be a bullfighter.
You know what? It's like that's so interesting to me. Like when you're a little kid, you want to be a bullfighter, and it's kind of like it reminds me right now. Okay, Garrett Urigan, like they said when he's a itty bitty kid, also from Oklahoma, but he always like he when he was itty bitty, he would announce slacks and stuff. Like I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how it happens, but what I'm sitting here thinking as a girl who in the college rodeos, like at Window Rock, Arizona, we tied billy goats and the goat tying and stuff, and we stunk for a week. And I'm thinking, your poor mom, if you were out there fighting a billy goat, you stunk, right?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely come with the territory, but it was strange. There was days that, the goat would be pretty slow and just kind of dog track you around, kind of trotting around, but then there'd be like the good cool days that, it was like a full on fighting bull chasing me out there, I'd remember multiple times having to try to scale a 5 strand barbed wire fence to get away from him, and uh I had a barrel out there. I'd work him on the barrel and everything that I'd see on TV, and it just kind of one thing led to another. But, by a little bit later on, that'd probably been around the 6, 7, 8 year old mark, but then moving on to being about 10 years old, my grandpa and them and my uncles and everybody had an arena there at my grandpa's place. And I think that's probably the biggest advantage that I had getting to get started so early was because we had an arena that, my grandpa would go to the sell barn and buy, just sell barn bulls. So it's very controlled for a 10-year-old to be out in the arena. But then there was always the occasional farmer or rancher that, well, I got a mean one that, bring him over. And there was times that I probably did kind of dip off into a little bit more than I needed to. And then, sure enough, a little bit later on, probably a few years, I remember I used to work all the Oklahoma and the Oklahoma junior high and high school rodeos for Chad Raymer all over Oklahoma. And in the steer riding, he had a Mexican steer, as a Mexican stag, but was a fighting bull, and they were bucking him, and sure enough, he was a mean dude. So I talked Chad into selling me that steer, so I went down and got him loaded and took him to my grandpa's place. And pretty soon, being on bull feed, and he matured from being a little low roping steer to a full grown, pretty good sized steer, but really really mean. And I remember being my uncle and my grandpa being the only two there, and none of the bull riders showed up. And I was like, well, I want to, I got to practice today. And I remember that bull getting me down. And grandpa was always about the little kids, like he always wanted to have some sheep or some little old Jersey calves or something real slow for the little bitty kids to have something to do. So we had to put like chicken wire around the bottom of the arena to make sure none of the sheep or goats or anything slipped out. So while this fighting bull's got me down and it's just my grandpa and my uncle there, uh, he's got me down against that fence and that chicken wire, and there's no way to get away from him. And he kind of hooked on me until his head got sore. So there's all kinds of crazy stories we could get into, but it definitely from a very young age, it was all I was set out. That's what I was gonna do.
That's that's pretty awesome to know so young. Okay, we're gonna time travel through the different parts of your life here as we go, but for a lot of people are talking about it right now. Let's talk about that shoulder and what happened to it and what it took to fix it. And you're kind of, I mean, go ahead and tell us that, but I also, you're kind of pressing the timeline for the NFR, right? But tell us, like, where'd you get hurt, and who fixed it and when, what they had to do.
Yeah, so it'd have been the last week of May. It'd been the inaugural Music City Rodeo in Nashville, the first year that they've done it, and it was huge. It was awesome to be a part of it. Being at Bridgestone Arena, being PRCA Pro Rodeo, being Smith Pro Rodeos. I mean, they rolled out the red carpet. Everything about the arena was awesome. As soon as you walk out of the arena, you go right into like a cowboy kind of bar scene type deal where all the sponsors and vendors and everybody that was a part of the rodeo could go, and it was very laid back, very chill. But like always, when it strikes, and it had been the first performance with the very first bull. I was working the latch side, which would have the outgate to my back, and that big white bull of Scott Burse's bucked right there close and dropped that guy kind of off in the well, and then shot him kind of right at me, right into the outgate. And 9 times out of 10, when it's going down like that and they kind of come off their neck, they feel them, they can see them, and then they've already got a step on you getting to the guys when that kind of play plays out. And basically, all I could do was just, like I said, it was the very first bull, the very first perf, and it was either ante up and saddle up cowboy and take the shot for the guy, or let the guy just get, sure enough, run over or hooked. And so it got really tight really fast. And the only way that I could figure out how to make this deal work is just lay across that bull's top of his head and his neck. And which, when you lay on one, you pretty much lose all control of what you're doing. And he ended up pitching me a big flip and sent me down the alley. Of the outgate, going down the alley, not through the other side of the arena, but through going, towards a strip and shoot. And I crashed the panels really, really hard. Like I had some velocity. We were moving. And uh, when I hit the panels, it cut me a complete flip. Then I landed against the panels. And then as soon as I come down, I landed straight on my elbow, which kind of shot my elbow out the front. And I was kind of laying there. It didn't knock me out, but it knocked me kind of goofy, and so to say. And I remember laying there, and I was trying to like push myself up with my arm that I was laying on, and like I couldn't really get it to fire or move, And then Tuckness come up behind me and kind of grabbed me by my chest from behind and kind of got me to stand up to my knees. And my shoulder was completely down, in my pec. And as soon as I kind of raised up and moved it, and it went back into socket. So I kind of got up, and he's like, "You good?" And I said, "Man, I think I dislocated my shoulder, like it was out." And I kind of walked around for a couple minutes, and I had a really nice brand new cowboy hat that was just perfect, just broke it out, started wearing it. So it's all crunched and tore up. So I'm trying to fix my hat, kind of mad about that. And then kind of moved my shoulder around. I'm like, yeah, it's hurting, but it's in socket, And then it's time to fire the next bull, and went good with it. About the second bull after that, just a routine move. It dropped completely back down again, dislocated, but then went all the way back in. And then, so I got through the rest of the bull riding, went back to sports medicine, and that doctor lady that was in there, she kind of moved. She told me to raise my arms up. So I raised my arm up, and it dropped completely out again. And she had to put it in then. And then I think I just kind of moved around to lay down she did something, and it completely fell out again. So I dislocated 4 times that night. And I knew something. I knew I wasn't right, just doing what I did and it just coming out. I knew I had a problem. But it's the first perps, first rodeo, and if Frank Newsom took me in at a really young age, and I learned a lot of tough lessons early on, and if you're able to be on your feet and move and do what you need to do in order to do your job, then you're not going to sit out, you're going to go finish the job. And so I ended up finishing the weekend, and we left from there Sunday, drove straight to Dallas to Tandy Freeman, did the MRIs and the x-rays and everything Monday, which then determined everything that we had wrong with it. And so I'm sitting there talking to Tandy, and he's kind of like, he's like, when's the other time you tore the shoulder up so bad? I said, well, like what I've done, I don't recall doing what I've done this weekend, but I said, like, I've had multiple times where my shoulder hurt or was sore for a week or a month or a couple months or whatever, but it was always stuff I could push through, And he said, well, this shoulder is destroyed, like, and it's destroyed with a bunch of old stuff. And now look at this, all this stuff that's new is like white and kind of glowing, that's all the new damage. But all this black, like, he's just scratching his head. He's like, I don't know how you've been fighting bulls or working out or training or doing anything that you've been doing up to this point, because your shoulder is so damaged. And I said, well, damn, doc, I don't know. I just been rolling with it, I guess, but it gets sore, but I really stay up, kind of, staying, making sure my shoulders are strong, my arms are strong. So I do, 1,000, couple thousand push-ups a week. But, and I felt like maybe that's what's kept me going for so long. But long story short, I kind of figured, it ended up completely shearing off the front of my socket, completely disintegrated my capsule, tore my biceps tendon, uh, and then it had a bunch of bone fragments that it had broke off, uh, that was all floating around and everything. So I kind of figured that, being Doc how he is, I'd probably I kind of figured I was done, and we kind of sat there and talked for a while, and he's like, well, what's your schedule? And I said, well, I've got, 2 weeks off, and then I head to Reno, Nevada, and it's full tilt till, the end of October. And he said, well, you got two options. We can either do surgery next Thursday and get it fixed, or we can do 3 weeks of physical therapy and put a brace on it, and you can go to Reno and see how you get along. And I said, well, if you're giving me the option to go tough it out, then I'm probably going to take that option first, because within the PRCA, you have to have your rodeo count and your performance count in order to be eligible for the National Finals Rodeo. So, sitting there at Nashville, that was only my second rodeo. I'd already performanced out, San Antonio, you got to have a minimum of 8 rodeos with 20 performances. Well, I had 23 performances at San Antonio in February, so my performances are good. I just got to get to the number 8, however I do that. So I thought, well, if you're giving me the option, I'm going to take off and go to Reno. Did 3 weeks of physical therapy, and felt really, really good leaving home, going to Reno. I was a little sore, but I had my strength. I could get through my workouts. I was doing all the therapy. Every time we would stop on the 19-hour trip to Cody, every time we'd stop to get fuel, I had a set of bands. I'd burn my shoulder out while I'm pumping fuel, jump back in the truck, drive another 5, 6 hours, jump out, get fuel, burn my shoulder out again. Took the therapy really, really serious. And I think maybe I felt a little too good getting to Reno, because we had the Extreme Bulls for the first performance. So it's I think it's a 45 head long round with a 15 bull short round. And for the first 2 sections, I mean, I felt, when I went over to sports medicine, I didn't even tape my shoulder. I just put my shoulder brace on, and because I felt that good, like I could jog, I could run, I was training, I was doing everything I needed to do physical therapy wise to build the muscles back. And I think I felt maybe a little too good. Maybe I had that brace a little too extended out. I don't know. And long story short, about the third section, Tristan Hutchins' bull reached and kind of cut me off, and I kind of just put my arm on him to get by him, and he jammed it into me, and it completely come all the way out again. But it had a different kind of pain with it than what it did at Nashville, after the initial blow. The initial blow was really bad. You know, the pain was real. It was real pain. And then the other three dislocations, you know, it hurt, but it was a different kind of pain when it first happened. And this one at Reno, being the fifth dislocation, had a completely different kind of pain with it, you know. So I knew instantly I'd done more damage. How much more damage I didn't know, but I just knew I did something because it felt different. So, you know, I got back to the motel with Ashley and never went to sleep Thursday night. The pain was just for real. And then so I got up Friday morning, text Doc, you know, and I said, "Hey man, I need to talk with you. Call me." So he calls me. Uh, we were sitting in the sports medicine trailer getting therapy on it because we had, you know, the rodeo performances started that next night. So long story short, I told Doc, you know, I wanted to schedule my surgery, and he's like, "Well, what, next week?" And I said, "No, not next week. Like, I want to schedule it for as soon as Cheyenne's over." And he's like, "Well, why are you going to go to Cheyenne?" I said, "Well, that's going to end up being end up being like my tenth show, plus, you know, I'll be qualified. I'll have my qualifications for the finals. I'll have everything I need, and it gives me about 4 months, 2 weeks to get ready for the NFR if I'm chosen." And he's like, instantly, you know, we get in a discussion, an argument, but I said, "Just bear with me, Doc. Like, you know, if we can do this, I want to try it, you know." So I made it through the rest of Reno, made it through Cody. You know, Cody had an Extreme Bulls also. Made it through Casper, made it through Cheyenne's Extreme Bulls. Ended up dislocating, I don't know, like probably 8 or 9, like sure enough, drop down bad dislocations, but I had probably that many, 8 or 9, kind of halfway dislocations too, you know. So I was dealing with it every day. Plus having a performance every day, plus, you know, getting run over. You know, we had a couple bad hangups we had to get in on. So like every day it was getting tested, you know, and but anyways, we made it through it, and soon as Cheyenne was over, we headed home and went and seen Tandy in Dallas and got the surgery started. And like I said, he had to completely, took about 2 hours with the scope to get all the bone fragments that was broke off. Come to find out, at Reno, I ended up tearing my biceps tendon and completely shearing off a big chunk of cartilage off the back of my femoral head that goes in the socket, if that's the right word for it. And then so after 2 hours of cleaning all that mess up, he finally got to get started. He cut me from the top of my collarbone all the way down to my armpit and laid everything open. And that's where he went in and screwed back down the big parts of the bone that was sheared off the socket. Uh, Screwed those in, went and cut off some more bone from somewhere else on my collarbone somewhere, and shaved it down and shaped it to put a block on the front of the socket that then screwed into the socket also to kind of make a stop for the socket. And then completely rebuilt the capsule, rebuilt or fixed my biceps tendon, completely re-anchored in my labrum, and I think that's it.
I,
And
I would love to be in the
big
room.
surgery.
What was the date of the surgery?
August 6th.
August 6th. To be in that room when, I mean, Tandy's really good at cowboy math, but you shipwrecked your shoulder. He's always told me the worst surgery for any cowboy in any event is shoulder surgery. It's the most painful to recover from. It's the worst, but you can't shortcut the 6 months. So you're talking 4 months and 2 weeks. Did you say?
Yeah, I think it'll end up being exactly 4 months to the day. If I could have got in, you know, the week before, as soon as Cheyenne was over, I think it would have gave me another week or two. But I think it'll be exactly till the day, 4 months for the
Well,
first
so
performance.
so besides giving Tandy a heart murmur. It's really fascinating. Okay, the best bull riders in the world vote who's going to go into battle with them, to protect them at the NFR. That's a heck of a vote of confidence for you. I mean, I don't know if you ever thought, well, for those guys knowing that you're sidelined, they all have to know you're trying to beat Tandy's timeline by 2 months, and yet they still said he's our guy. I mean, that's pretty cool for you, right? I mean,
He
that
had a
says
quote. He had a quote that I wanted to bring up, and this is a good time that I think says a lot about Cody's character. That I found. It says, "I battled and made it through it." He's told us about the pain and everything. And if I were to make the NFR again, in my own mind, that justified that I earned my spot, not just getting in there because I am who I am. That's cool shit. He went
Yeah.
and he fought bulls and showed those guys, and that's probably, I guarantee you, that's part of the reason that he got the vote. Right? What do you think, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, it's humbling, to have those guys still believing in me, and there's been multiple of them that told me, well, we don't care if you've only got one arm, clearly you made it through the full summer. And that was kind of my big decision. Was I could have quit at Cody or maybe Casper. It was one of the two. And I would have had exactly, that'd have been the limit that I could have had to be qualified. But it just didn't stick with me getting just the bare minimum. And and maybe I'm dumb, maybe I made a bad decision, I don't know. But I just thought if I could stick it out through Cheyenne, if I could do my job at a high enough level, one armed through Cheyenne, that if I was to get chose for this year's finals, that it would kind of justify it in my mind that you earned it. I kind of felt like if I quit at Cody the week after Reno, that you know I just felt like deep down it'd be hard to kind of swallow the pill that I would have, if I got chose, I'd have got chosen off of who I was. Like I wanted to go earn it and prove to the guys that. And again, I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anybody. But just being within myself, I kind of felt like if I could push through, that it would be justified in my mind. And sure enough, it's worked out the way it's worked out, and we're headed back for number 13. And it is, Kendra. It is 2 months ahead. But talking to like Tim O'Connell, RC Landingham, uh, Marcus Mariluch, there's multiple guys that I called uh, that ride bucking horses. Not saying bullfighting's any easier, but I'm not running my arm in a rigging for 10 rounds. Uh, they said that, like Tim O'Connell, he was back getting on horses at 4.5 months. And, you know, am I maybe the machine that Tim is? I don't know, but I just kind of
right.
felt, and then
Was that riding arm or free arm? Just curious.
his
Just
riding arm.
riding arm. Okay. Which can be better, right? Because it stays down.
It can definitely,
Yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
you're
No,
getting on bucking
that's a
horses.
juror for sure.
And
Well, that's a heck of a welcome back to opening night at the NFR, right? Uh,
yeah.
I I was
So, but
curious about.
the
Go ahead.
the Justin Sports Medicine team glued me together all the way through all of this. I've got Dave and Rich that's on the PBR crew, that the sports medicine PBR crew that has been in MLB, maybe, been with the very best athletes. Uh, Tony Merrick, that's right there in Reno, he's with the PBR also, has worked on multiple, very high end athletes. And with all those guys in my corner, and saying, if I do what I'm told, I eat correctly, no booze, no alcohol, no, nicotine, no nothing, that if you truly dedicate to it, there's a really good chance you could be good to go by 4 months. And for that 2 month period after the wreck, I did therapy every day. It didn't matter if I was hurting so bad I couldn't sleep. I'd get up every day at Reno, go to Tony's office, did therapy every day. All the way through, I kept running, somewhere between 3 to 5 miles a day on the treadmill. So I never let my muscles quit. You know what I mean? All the way through all the pain. We kept hammering, hammering, hammering. Got home, went straight into surgery. So I got to go into surgery very, very strong. Uh, the week of Cheyenne, we were running 4 or 5 miles a day, running the bleachers every day, plus fighting bulls every day. So like I went into it strong, which I think is what has let me come out of it so quick. And then, like I said, I've been dedicated. I've been eating good. I've been, completely clean, 100% for 14 weeks now. And I think that's a lot of it.
No,
I
a
really
person
do.
feels better. All three of us have a lot of history with the PBR, and I was kind of curious about if there are any differences as a rule with fighting bulls in the PBR versus PRCA in 2025. Like, are the bulls, like, do they tend to be in? Are there any differences? And also the bull riders, are there any preference differences of like how much they want you to do this or that between the two, or no?
It, I mean, there's been, a few guys through the years that's been able to do what I did. Joe Baumgartner was one of them, and Rob Smits was the other one. Rob was working the PBRs and going to the pro rodeos, making the finals. Joe Baumgartner did it for, geez, I don't know, 20 something years. But there is a lot of animosity, and I don't know why or where it comes from, but you kind of will get labeled as a PBR guy, or you get labeled as a pro rodeo guy, but I've somehow, some way, I've managed a really good relationship all the way through it. The run of rodeos that I got is the premier events of the year. I get to travel around with the PBR and go to the best buildings and the best bull riding. So it's kind of a chess game, keeping everybody happy on both sides, but
But is the actual work in the arena at a PBR, the bulls and the bull riders, versus the PRCA, the bulls and the bull riders, is the actual work this the same, or are there differences?
I mean, I would just kind of say it just depends on how the night goes. I do think you take more abuse. I think you do get run over and hooked way more pro rodeoing, because the bulls, uh, like you get in Benny Butler's pen, he's got a lot of bulls that are known to run your ass over. Going to the PBR is kind of more of the very best bulls that is available, and they get hauled a lot more. They're going a lot further. Uh, so to me, there's not as many mean bulls in the PBR, but the ones that are mean are very smart, and they're very large, and they hit harder. That'd be the biggest difference, I would say, between the two.
Well,
Uh,
would you say, so I'm just going to pitch this out there that without knocking down either association, but there are guys in the PRCA that it causes you guys a little more work. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've been in this a long time too. These guys that either don't know when or how to get off. Okay, that's one thing. Or just try too hard, right? Like they just, and there's more of that. How do I say this nicely? There's more guys that are okay with getting bucked off. I think this is my personal opinion, uh, in the PBR as a whole now than there was back in my day. Then some of these younger guys in the extreme bulls that will, when they probably should have gotten off, honestly, they don't. Is that fair to say that it can be a
yeah,
little
I think.
ranker in that deal than in the PBR?
I mean, it's like anything. I think like you're very, your top 20, top 25 bull riders in the PRCA. Uh, know how to take just as good a care of themselves as the top 25 bull riders in the PBR. When it comes to getting off, or they get hung up, or they get in a bind, or they Sage Kimsey to me is probably the best at knowing when to go ahead and grit it out and take a shot to get the whistle, or he knows when it's time to check out because you're at the point of no return and you're going to get car crashed. I think he's probably the very best at it. But in both associations, when you get to the top tier, they know how to take care of themselves. Pro rodeo, you could, on any given night, you could have a permit guy roll in that can put you in a bind just as quick as Stetson Wright, given everything he's got to grit it out and make the whistle. So it goes every direction. But as far as the bulls go, when you're pro rodeoing, you've usually got, you know, 15, 20 bulls that'll all be in one pen, and your bigger, stronger bulls are going to get a little bit more grain than the younger, bulls that maybe ain't been to town and standoffish. At the PBR, the bulls they're all singled up. They live by themselves all the time. So when you put out 20 pounds of grain, that bull gets all 20 pounds of grain. And it's just the hardness, the muscle mass, and they're just a little. There's just a. It's just a different animal. But I think when you put all that in the mixture, you've got to be ready to for whatever comes at you. And I really feel like something that's helped me through my career is flip flopping back and forth. You know, I don't just go the PBR route, so I don't kind of get stale and used to being more lackadaisical because the bulls aren't mean all the time. And then I flip back over to the rodeo and I go get off in a set of bulls that I don't know and have more of a tendency to want to hook somebody. So I feel like flip flopping between the two has really helped keep me sharper over the years.
We had Smets on, and he's not a fan of the triangle.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty hard for the old guys to accept it, and they can say whatever they want to say, and they're all my heroes. But at the end of the day, when you've got three guys that's on the same page, that's doing their job to be keeping the guys safe, the amount of abuse goes down considerably. You might
Well, I
you
would.
might get run over like last year at the NFR. I don't think I think Dusty may have got run over one time. Uh, we all got bumped around throughout the 10 rounds, but I think Dusty was the only one that got on the ground once. You look back at years ago when it was just the two-man rotation, it wouldn't be anything for one of the guys to get on the ground four, five, six times in one night, So I know the proof's in the pudding. I know that it has 100% made the longevity. Talk about Frank Newsom, Tommy Joe. You know him from the word go. It considerably added years to his career because he was within the PBR, and they had the three-man system down. Joe Bumgardner is who invented it. For everybody that's paying attention or didn't know, because for years it was always two guys in and one guy setting up on the fence or, completely out of the picture. And when a bad wreck breaks out, then you're 10 miles late trying to get there. So Joe's like, what about if I go up top and come from that top side? And the reason it's designed to come from the top side going to the out gate is because 9 times out of 10, those bulls are patterned. So if they're coming out of a left hand delivery, chances is they're going to spin right there to the left. So coming from the high side, you're taking that bull straight to the out gate, which is where the system come from. And there's without a doubt it has took a lot of abuse away from us.
oh, and it's helped the Cowboys. It also depends on who three are at the 3 points. I mean,
It does. If you
I've
if you
seen
got a guy
guys,
that don't get the situation or don't understand teamwork, then it does become a
it can be
train wreck.
worse.
It
It
can
can be
be way
worse
worse.
if the guy don't know what he's doing. I've seen it
100%.
over and over again because then the other two
100%.
guys are caught off guard. Nobody's going the right direction.
Yeah,
Very
teamwork
frustrating.
makes everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of teamwork, tell us about that the what you and that other Cody, as in Cody Johnson, have been working on, this cool little project. I don't know if everybody knows about it.
Well, it's pretty cool. I'm my very first national finals rodeo was in 2013, And that was Cody Johnson's very first time to go play the South Point for 4 days during the NFR. And we run into him uh kind of, I think, just down on the casino floor before the concert and before the rodeo, and we kind of hit it off. And we're all buddies, we're all kind of about the same age and whatever. And one thing led to another, and he's like, "Well, when y'all get back from the show tonight, I'll put your name on the list, and y'all come backstage and hang out, and when the show's over, we'll go get into something." So I'm like, "Man, that sounds like a heck of a deal." So we get back from the perf and we head to the Cody Johnson concert, and we're backstage and we eat all his sandwiches and, you know, take over his adult beverages. And then next thing I know, the concert's over and we're headed out to the parking lot to go to the bus. And that's where we stayed until way late in the morning, I'll say. And that's the rest has been history. Cody's been a very big part of, becoming a part of the Team Resist All, cowboy hats, cactus ropes, cactus gear, everything that he's kind of intertwined with. He's introduced me to them guys, and we've all become very good friends. So I'm actually at Reno that Thursday night that my shoulder got boogered up again. Laying there in bed, it's about midnight, and I get a message, "Hey, dude, are you up?" And I'm like, "Actually, yeah." So he calls me and he's like, "Man, have you heard the fall? Have you heard the fall?" And I'm like, the what?" And he's like, "The fall. It's on my Leather album. Like you've heard it, haven't you?" And I'm like, "Dude," I said, I'm sorry, but that one's not ringing. Like, I know Human, I know, but that one's not ringing a bell." And he's like, "Listen to it, call me back." So I hang up, I listen to the song, I call him back. I'm like, "It's pretty good, dude. What's the deal?" And he's like, "Well, I got this idea. I'm wanting to make this music video, and like I want to kind of tie it back to a bullfighter." And I'm like, "Okay, well, like what do you need?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know if I want to go an old school route and kind of use maybe like a Frank Newsom or a Rob Smits, or do I want to go the newer route and use you?" And I said, "Well, man, like whatever route you want to go, I can help you. Like I know Rob, I know Frank, I know we can whatever we need to do." And he's like, "Well, like I'm just spitballing here, like I want to, this kind of my vision and what I'm seeing." And he's like, "What do you think?" And then I'm like, "Well, let me listen to the song again." And I sit there and listen to it for quite a while. And every time I'd listen to it, I would send him my thoughts. And then at the same time, he's sending me messages with his thoughts. And it kind of just become a big idea fest. And sure enough, about 4 or 5 days later, he called and he's like, "Man, I want to use you. I think, talking to the team, talking to everybody, you're more relevant. What you've got going with social media, yada yada yada, XYZ. I think it'll be a good fit." So probably another week later, I'm getting hooked up with his producers and his guys. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, "Well, when are we going to do this?" And like, "Well, it'll be towards the end of the year, somewhere around September, October." And I said, "Well, Cody, I've got a problem. I'm scheduled for shoulder surgery August 6th." And he's like, "Well, then we've got to make something happen fast." So that's where all this started going. Next thing I know, these camera crews are flying into Cheyenne. That's where we did some of the walk-in scenes and all the locker room scenes. As soon as Cheyenne was over, it was over Sunday. We drove home Monday. We started setting up everything Tuesday, and Wednesday we shot all the bull riding and the bullfighting scenes just right here at an arena that I kind of started in, which was really neat. And then I went right into surgery a couple days after that, and then he filmed all his part down around Houston with the same crew and everybody. And then I was just blown away with the authenticity that they kept throughout this entire deal. Just how good the video turned out, how well rounded, just it's authentic. You know, there's nobody with their spurs on backwards or their hats turned around backwards. Everything is right. It's very professional. It's very top notch, and to be a part of it, you know, I had no idea that he was gonna star in Cody Webster or make me be as big of a deal as I was in it. And man, it's really been a cool deal.
That's legit. That's super cool. Okay,
I, I
who
kind
are
of
your
think,
favorite? Go ahead.
well, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you two can think of someone, but someone was just, we were talking about Kojo, and I said, well, the difference is for me, so I grew up listening to Chris Ledoux. Chris didn't have the greatest voice in the world, but I know my boys were listening to Chris Ledoux on the way to school, right? And my point
Cowboy
being,
music.
it's cowboy music, and Kojo comes from real leather, like, and George Strait, Team Ropes. I get all that, but I'm just saying I don't know of a guy in country music that I know traces back to true leather, and Kojo's amazing voice. I mean, he's great at what he does, but I think he wouldn't allow that video to have, right. He
No,
would know. He would
absolutely not.
say, whatever you got going on there, get it out. That don't
And
work,
it
right?
was really neat, like on the bull riding scenes and everything. Like, you know, and I told Dustin Haney, the producer, I said, man, like I don't want to overstep my boundaries, but like when we cut, I'm coming up the stairs and I'm watching this with you because like this has to be right. Like I don't want to be a part of something that's going to be halfway done, you know. So like we were going through, and then I would talk to the bull riders and be like, well, we didn't get it. We're loading more bulls, and we would roll through some more bulls. We still didn't get it. You guys got to hang on a little longer. We finally ended up nailing it with one bull, and it turned out so good. But it was it was just it was done right, and I think that's why the video is doing so good. I mean, it is blowing up, going worldwide.
That's
Congratulations.
awesome. Who were some of your favorite bullfighters to do battle with?
Oh shoot, I feel like the bullfighting industry has hand over fist has just accelerated, you know, and I think a lot of it has to do with the crew that I've got to work with, which is, you know, Tuckness, Nate Justice, Nathan Hart, you know, being on the PBR tour with Frank Newsom, Jesse Byrne, you know, I feel like bullfighting as a whole, and I think you go across the entire board from the very elites to the amateur rodeo level. I think bullfighting has raised and gotten better. The bar has been set higher. It's been more publicized here the last 5, 6, 7 years. You know, I think all that has really exploded the talent of what we're seeing. The schools have really changed and progressed. But you know, I think, you know, you always hear like people talk about Smits and Miles Hare. Like that was the duo, and Kendra, you can touch in on this. Like they were the best duo for their era, you know. And I feel like me and Dusty has really probably took it to that bar, and to do what we've done. You know, I've this will be my 13th finals. I've worked every finals with Dusty. Um, you know, but just not even there. You know, we go to a bunch of the premier rodeos together, but also, you know, Tommy Joe had a great set of young kids at Days of 76 there that did an outstanding job. You know, I feel like it's elevated everywhere. So, uh, but I do owe a lot of my success to the guys I do get to work with, because when a wreck breaks out, who can get there the fastest? That's usually how it's going down, you know, and I feel like that's really elevated us and has made us stand out. And but you know, I really enjoy fighting bulls with Dusty. I really enjoy fighting bulls with Nathan Hart, Nate Justice, uh, Lucas Teodoro, the young kid that's getting to go to the finals with this year, which is Austin Ashley. Austin was a little bitty fat faced kid, buck-toothed kid over in the corner, 8 years old, when we were going to that practice pen. So I've known him since he was 8 years old. And to get to go to the finals with him is going to be really, really special. I feel like it's a full circle. And I don't know. I've got to work with a lot of really good bullfighters over the years.
I'm going to jump in because this gives me a chance. So I called Frank, known Frank since he was. Anyway, if you know Frank Newsom or if you've watched Frank Newsom, and, I said, Frank, is it true you mentored this kid? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, from about 11 on, his mom babysat at my house and he started coming over and then he just went with me and we went and worked all day and then we worked out. And he goes, I was really, really hard on him. He said really hard on him. He said to the point where, there's been comments that, we're not as hard on him anymore. Well, you can't be because this next generation doesn't have it in them. But this is to my point, which you're not going to say, but I'm going to say. Lots of great bullfighters you mentioned. There's a quality that old timers like me see in a Frank Newsom and in you. And there's absolutely zero thought. Now, I don't know that this is good and bad. Okay. I'm not saying this is what you should do or not do, but there's zero thought into self-preservation when it's your side of a wreck. There's just not. And while there might be better way to do it or a way to pull a bull off, you are just like Frank. If you look at your rec reel, because I started looking at some of the stuff, then I started chuckling, and that's when I called Frank and I said, but there's a mentality there that not everybody has, not even everybody that you mentioned. That's, it's great to be like, I've seen guys that are great athletes that get themselves out of the bind because they're fast and they might not have quite as much grit and still effective. But my point is that what I see in you, which I think would be hard for anybody to argue, is there's not any fear. And that's a bad word because I think Frank had some fear. There's zero thought of what this is going to happen, what's going to happen to me in this situation. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you make your move. You do exactly what you have to do in the moment. And there are all of the guys out there can't say that. And if you watch, I can say that. I can watch and see what happens. And you do that. Now, it's probably been harder on your body. It's definitely more dangerous for you. But when something has to happen, you do it. And so did Frank. Like
100%.
I told Frank, he was 17, come to Stephenville. So I did one of the first bullfights called Bullfest. I had Rex Dunn's bulls there. Frank shows up. He should have died that night. Like the stuff that
Yeah,
he did.
I've heard this story.
Yeah, and he comes out and I said, "You little punk, you ain't gonna live till you're 22. I'll be all right. You got to know Frank. We know Frank. I'll be all right." And I said, "Well, you're either stupid or you're just fearless or tough or all of it." I said, "But I'm telling you right now," and he outlived everybody and had an amazing career. But there's this level of gritty tough that I think you probably started learning at 11. Like there's no quit.
No, there's
Zero.
100%, man. The first time I really felt bad pain, I was 11 years old and man, I've been on Frank, like I want to fight them big bulls. Let me in with them big bulls. And no, damn it, get out of here. You ain't no, so we're at a practice pen and sure enough, I'm pressing him hard, like, man, let me stay out here. And all right, man, I tell you what, you want you some of it, get out here and get you some of it. So I'm out there and there's a big full grown white bull, flat horns. And long story short, he hooked up with Lindell and then he hooked up with Frank and then he rolled off the fence and it's me and him. It's my turn. And I get a couple good moves in on him and then he ended up catching me kind of right there in the leg and cut me a big flip and I land up against the panels or against the fence
You're good at
and
that.
That wind would blow across that arena So all that sand had kind of settled up against that fence. So the bottom rail was only about, 6, 7 inches off the ground. And my arm went through that when I landed up against it, kind of laying against it, and that bull mashed me and broke quite a few ribs. And I'm 11 years old. I've been hooked or run over or stepped on, but kind of what we would call more, like a just on the outer layer. You know what I mean? Like it's not nothing serious, but it was still kind of painful. This is real broke bones, real. If you broke ribs, you know how it is. So I get up, dust settles, and I've got a couple tears rolling, and I'm kind of can't breathe, but whatever, and kind of moping around. And I'm like, Frank, I can tell he's kind of got that jaw. He's pissed about what happened because I probably shouldn't have been out there to begin with. And I'm kind of keep moping around, and pretty soon he looks at me and he's like, "Well, what? Like you." I bet if you go over there to that girl right there, it's got that video camera. I bet if you give her her vest, she'll probably fight bulls for you and let you run that video camera if you want her to. And I'm just like, hell no. Like I absolutely not. And I mean, I remember it making me pull my hat down, and and I learned a lot that day. Learned a lot about being tough and not being a girl, And no offense, Kendra, but it it really did show me something. And then through the years, getting to be on tour with Frank and going to the bullfights and doing everything I did. I mean, it really did kind of shape me. There's been a lot of nights that I'd have to help Frank get out of bed and try to make it to the perf, and vice versa. There's a lot of night or days that he'd have to help me get out of bed to go to sports medicine and start figuring out how we're going to get through the night. But ever turn, I can remember one time of Frank turning out, and that's when he broke his leg in Omaha at the PBR. He couldn't make it work to get through the day. But being at T-Mobile at the PBR finals, and a broke leg with 7 broke ribs, and a broke vertebrae off, the wings off his vertebrae, and broke shoulder. He's the toughest guy I've ever been around, and I feel like some days it's a little bit of a curse because there's days that I probably should have just stayed home and or turned out of that performance, and I never did. But I feel like that's kind of what has separated me or other guys from everybody else. And a lot to do with this shoulder deal. If I'm not 100% ready to go by the time the middle of November gets here, then I'm probably gonna call an opt out. But if I feel like I'm where I need to be and feel like I'm ready to go, then and gonna be 100%, then I'm gonna go give it everything I got. And that's the truth of it. Time's
You'll
gonna
be
tell, but I can tell you one thing: I do get to the Thomas and Mack and wheel my gear bag in there. It will be for 10 rounds. So,
that's the real deal. Well, I only got
yep.
one more little history thing that I thought was cool that I found that I need to make sure is true. Is it true you found a set of baggies in a bag in an RV behind the house? Because I just think we've been going a long time and we need to get off. But that little thing that I found, I thought, because I remember Dad getting the baggies. We'd get them all shipped in, and I was little. But those things, well, you said something in the clip about the yellow patch, and I can remember as a kid when those
Yeah.
Wrangler baggies would come in, the patch just, it's something about it. It was huge, right? And so I just
Yep.
wanted to, is that like, that's like fate. Like that's
Yeah,
really
I
cool
think I
stuff.
think it like I said, it was from the word go, being a little bitty tiny kid, a little bitty baby. My mom could tell that I would always look at the clowns and the bullfighters, and I always was paying attention to the bulls. And but yeah, sure enough, my mom had ended up marrying this guy that had fought bulls back when he was younger. And it'd been, I don't know, that RV, the roof was completely gone, everything was caved in on it. But being a little bitty kid out there treasure hunting and moving around and doing what we did every day, running the creek, uh, going through, just rummaging through all that rubble. There was a big blue bag sitting down underneath all this roof and everything. And I was like, I kind of kicked it and I'm like, man, that thing is packed. Like there's something in this bag, and I ended up getting it kind of dug out and pulled down. And as soon as I opened that zipper, I seen that yellow patch and I knew instantly what they were because I'd wore out rodeo bloopers and all the bullfighting videos, the Wrangler bullfights, everything that I could get a hold of, and I knew exactly what that patch was. And when I pulled that bag out, it had all of Kenny's old shirts, all his baggies, his tights. It
That's
had
cool.
everything, his whole gear bag. And I zipped that thing up, got it up on my back. It was as big as I was. And I toted that thing up to the house and put it in my room and went to digging through. And, one thing led to another. And sure enough, that was
That might have been your first shoulder injury
that
right
might have been the
there.
first shoulder injury. You're right. But yeah, it's a true story. It's 100% real. And, it's just been such a whirlwind, like to go from the junior high and high school rodeos to all the amateur and KPRA, CPRA, UPRA, all the rodeos around here, the IPRAs, to being 17, going to the IFR in Oklahoma City for the IPRA finals, turning 18, going to Burwell, Nebraska, being my very first. Or was I actually got to go fill in for one night at a rodeo in Kansas, a pro rodeo, and then my debut was Burwell, Nebraska with Benny Butler. And
Benny,
if you know anything about Uncle Ben, he's a little hard to get along with, and his bulls will usually run your ass over. And
you made $50 and a good pat on the back.
I got my brand new Bangora ripped off my head from Benny and thrown on the ground. And that was my first time to meet Uncle Ben, and then had a really good week there at Burwell. And then, a couple months later, I got to go to Oklahoma City for Greg Rumor and be at the Extreme Bulls with Benny there. And then, like I said, it was like the next year or 2 years after that is when I got my first call for the National Finals Rodeo. So it was just everything happened so fast and so quick. But uh, man, I wouldn't go back and change anything.
Cool, cool stories. Well, Kendra, we'll do last call here. A little around the circle
Yeah.
here. I'll
You guys, I'm
let
just going
you
to tell
go.
you that I officially did not get to one half of my questions. You haven't heard the last from me. You haven't got the last question from me. So we'll say to be continued. But I guess, and it really bums me out. I mean, like, I wanted to ask you about having a wife named Smash.
Well,
Yeah.
go for it. Go for it.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
we got a few
Smash,
minutes.
that's a great name. Does
Yeah,
she earn it?
I don't know. That's just kind of what I called her in high school, and leading into all 13 bullfighters living in a trailer house and her coming around, and we just called her Smash. She was always in the middle of us and taking care of us more than anything. But we went to high school together, and then after college and everything, and kind of getting through our wilder days, we started talking and whatever, and ended up getting married. And we run about 1,200 acres here with commercial cows, fighting bulls, and she's as
Awesome.
good at flanking fighting bulls as anyone as I've ever seen. So it's been quite the match, to say the least.
That's
And
sweet.
we
That's
both
awesome.
enjoy animals that want to try to kill you and think it's a good thing. So we're doing pretty
No.
good.
There's not enough congratulations, but my biggest message to you is thank you, because in your line of work, I feel like I always kind of think about hazers, pickup men, and bullfighters. It's like typically the perfect perf is like that. There's that nobody really noticed, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's
it isn't it
100% the
funny?
truth of it.
Everybody talks about, if a guy hazing misses one haze out of 100, that's the one they talk about, or whatever. But
Yep.
But anyway, thank you
Yeah, we
for, I
can,
mean,
and
sometimes,
especially with social media and everything that we have now, like you can have 100 great performances, and that 101st performance, you have a bad night. That's the night that gets blasted all over social media. So the bullfighting has really, really changed a lot, to say the least. And in my time, definitely since the old days. So if you're gonna have an off day, it better be at the ranch training.
no, I'm just saying thank you for all the lives you've saved.
I'm going to say thank you for being successful and the top of your game without having to kiss a lot of ass and be phony. That to
Thank you.
me is that's the true mark of a champion, is a guy that can look back at his time and say, I earned it, I didn't. Well, you know the
Yeah,
rest of it. So
yeah.
good job. Congratulations. Well,
Thank you.
this has been episode number 81. We want to thank Cody. I want to thank Smash for getting his camera all set up for him and putting his makeup on. We know that you'll wheel your bag in Thomas and Mack, judging from how you train and how tough you are. And we also know that there won't be any doubt in anybody's mind that you don't belong there. So we want to
Yes,
thank
sir.
all of you for joining us at No Spin Rodeo. Thank you, Mr. Webster. Thank you, Kendra. Thank you all. We'll see you next Tuesday. This has been No Spin Rodeo. Thanks for joining us.